Welcome to Creating Calm Parenting with Mind, Body, and Spirit. I'm Corinne Cayce, your co-host. I'm an integral leadership coach, a mother of two, and a lifelong student of the Edgar Cayce readings. And I'm here with my friend and co-host, Arlene. Hi, Arlene.
Hi, Corinne. Hi, everyone. It's Dr. Arlene Dijamco. I'm an integrative physician, a pediatrician, and a cranial osteopath, and a mom of four. And we are so looking forward to this talk with you because we're going to be talking about the music of the spheres, which is such a beautiful topic for this time of year. We're entering the holiday season, and so the veil is thin. We have that more access to the celestial music and the rhythms, and we're going to talk about what the music of the spheres are, how they can help us, and how we can practically integrate the music of the spheres into our everyday lives. So as we get started, Corinne is going to set the vibration for the talk, pun intended, with our opening meditation.
Yes. So let's take a few moments wherever we are and whatever we're doing. If you can close your eyes, please feel free to. Otherwise, you can just let your attention turn inward for a few moments. And so much of what we'll be exploring today is around vibration and balance. So let's just, with our breath, use it as a bit of an instrument to help ourselves attune a bit. So let's bring some direction to our breathing. If you would be willing to inhale for a count of 6, hold your breath in for 2, exhale slowly for a count of 8 through your nose or your mouth. Hold for 2, inhale for 6, hold for 2, exhale for 8, hold for 2, and we'll do it one more time. Inhale for 6, hold for 2, exhale last time for 8. All right. Thank you very much. So we're going to begin this conversation in the way that we always do, with an excerpt from the Edgar Cayce readings to kind of center and set the tone for our conversation. So this excerpt comes from reading 2581-2. And it says, "Think for a moment of the music of the waves upon the shore, of the morning as it breaks with the music of nature, of the night as it falls with the hum of the insect, of all the kingdoms as they unite in their song of appreciation to an all-creative influence that gives nature consciousness or awareness of its being itself, and harmonize that in thine own appreciation as to bring music akin to the song of the spheres." Right. So the music of the spheres, Arlene and I picked this topic because it's a phrase that's used repeatedly throughout the Edgar Cayce readings. And we were really curious. One, what does that mean when it's used in the Edgar Cayce readings? What is the music of the spheres? And also, there's so much research and learning that we're doing around music and sound as a healing modality. And what do the Edgar Cayce readings have to say about that? And how can we really apply? What are the takeaways from that into our lives, into our homes as parents and as caretakers and professionals and with our children? How can we use and weave music into our lives to help bring about balance and healing and attunement that's talked about in the readings a lot? So that was our inspiration for this topic, and we have dived deep and wide into into what's going on, and it's honestly fascinating. And I think through the research process, I've already started integrating changes into my life and into our home in a way that's really inspiring. And so I'm so excited to have this conversation today to kind of bring it forward with you all and with Arlene into what's going on and how we can weave music and sound into our lives. So let's get started.
There are
Yeah.
so many directions we can take this, so many rabbit holes that have been so fun to dive into. But
Right.
that first reading excerpt is so beautiful. it is
Mhm.
poetic in itself, and you can hear the rhythm of the words, and understanding like that music of the spheres is a part of all of us. It's a part of nature. It's a part
Mhm.
of the morning sunrise, the sunset, the waves on the shore, the blossoming of a flower. And so it's we if we access our own essence and that alignment with the creative forces, then we are basically accessing this music of the spheres. A sphere itself in sacred geometry represents oneness. And so we're accessing the oneness of all things, the love that unifies all of us. And
Mhm.
the music of the spheres, I think about that also, like the sounds of the angels when a baby is born. And Dr. Gladys McGarry had talked about this before, how she had helped birth so many babies and into the world, and each time she would hear the angel singing, like welcoming them into this incarnation, into the earthly
Mhm.
journey. So I love to hear that
Yeah.
those angels singing when a baby
Right.
is born, and it's like that baby's giggle, like that kind of sound that is so heavenly and
Yeah.
sweet. And
Right. It seems like the phrasing "music of the spheres" when it's used in the Edgar Cayce readings, and we're starting right here with the spiritual, that we can get physical, we can get mental, emotional, we can be spiritual, and we're starting this conversation at the spiritual because in my sense of the Edgar Cayce readings, music of the spheres is referring directly to a spiritual experience that is like exactly what Arlene is saying, and an opening of the channel of the experience of oneness, and that music is a dimension in the universe, a vibratory dimension, and that the stars, that there's at a vibratory level, everything is giving off a musical sound, and that when we are having peak experiences or when our channel our chakras are open and we're in alignment, or there's something that happens that moves us into an ecstatic or deeply attuned state, we can open and hear this music. We naturally do that. It's there all the time, but that there's these times where we're kind of open to it, and it's described often as celestial or like otherworldly, and that it is amazingly beautiful and moving. And one of the main places that this is talked about in the Edgar Cayce readings is at the birth of Jesus, that when that soul came into the earth plane, there was a collective experience that everyone who was around during that time, whether it's the innkeeper's daughter and his family, or the shepherds, or the three wise men, or anyone who was outside at that time, heard this celestial music, this singing, beautiful, let there be peace on earth and goodwill toward all, and that there was also light, that it was like, many, many moons in the sky shining such brightness, and that there was this experience that was happening for people who were present during that time. And it was real music of the spheres. It's also talked about a lot with the morning stars, and that there's just
Mhm.
this kind of, or when you're having a profound relationship with nature in any way, where you're feeling that oneness, that there's this dimension that we can tune into and access, that where we're hearing this beautiful, and that it moves us toward joy and oneness, as Arlene was saying, that's like right there available to us.
Mhm. And that music is meant to be experienced with our whole being. So
Yeah.
even though we have our ears, being able to hear certain things and within a certain vibrational range, it's really that frequency. So we're experiencing music with the feeling of it. We can
Mhm.
feel the sound and we can hear it. And
Mhm.
even some people can like kind of see like colors with it. So it becomes
Totally.
like synesthesia. But it's a it's always there, and so it's
Yeah.
about us tuning into it so that we can access more of this oneness
Right.
that's the health within.
Totally. So to set us off in that direction of kind of exploring how does music affect us and how can we, what's going on, how can we work with it? This is another excerpt from the readings that Arlene and I really loved. It comes from reading 3328-1, and it says, mathematics and music always go together, for the former is the science of time, the latter the art of time. Music being unconscious counting. Yeah.
That's that's so beautiful. When you read that, I start to open up my perspective on time too,
Totally.
because we can't have the music, the story without the time, and so there is something beautiful about time, and then the fact that this time is also moving through us,
Mhm.
and it's so we are experiencing the rhythm that's always in the present moment, and so
Yeah.
it's like time moving through us, and our whole life has this rhythm to it. So we are part of the music. We can be part of the music of the spheres if we choose to by simply aligning ourselves with that the creative forces, with the divine, with the stillness,
Mhm.
and following that stillness within us and letting that express through our rhythms of living.
Mhm.
And so there's this, the physicality of the music, and then there's that metaphorical expression of the music and the rhythms of our life, and the actual vibrational quality of our soul essence and being expressed into our everyday life. So it really is a body, mind, spirit experience.
Mhm. And what it seems like I hear both in the readings and in the science that's starting to be done around what is happening with sound
Mhm.
healing is that, like, as we look for, as we, whether we're creating it ourselves through toning or sound, sounds that we're making ourselves, or we're listening to different sounds coming to us in different ways, that we can facilitate or enhance our own healing process and the balancing that's happening at a vibratory level, that we can get out of sync and out of alignment, and and that we experience that out of alignment, where we might experience it as anxiety or a headache or something like that. At a vibratory level, we're out of sync as well, whether, all our
Mhm.
cells are vibrating at a certain level. So bringing soothing sounds in can help those vibrations find either a missing vibration or bringing into balance the different vibrations that are
Mhm.
going on, and that it can help us feel better in lots
Uh-huh.
of ways. Yeah.
Yes, yes, there are so many excerpts from the reading talking about exactly that, about filling in these missing notes or tuning into certain notes that we need to that have been off, like they're out of tune or something. And
Yeah.
there is one excerpt from 1861-12. It says, "Every individual entity is on certain vibrations." That's our soul essence. It's so beautiful. We're all this unique set of vibrations. Every
Yeah.
disease or disease is creating in the body the opposite or non-coordinate vibration with the conditions in the body, mind, and spirit of the individual. If there is used certain vibrations, there may be seen the response. In some, it is necessary for counteraction. In some, it is necessary for changes. So everything is of a vibrational nature, and
Hmm.
that where our essence is a certain sound, harmony, and if it is if we're feeling off, it's really because we're not tuned into our own, soul essence vibration, which
Hmm.
is, to me, an expression of the music of the spheres, and so
Hmm.
sometimes we need to counteract, so, t like, that to me kinda sounds like, oh, if we're feeling down, just kinda spin it in the positive, spin our perspective into something, inspiring and more positive, and then in some, it's necessary for changes, and that to me means perhaps, like, singing a new phrase or adjusting, the song, the words of the song, or a new melody. So we're meant to create a shift in our lives, and and that can be done literally and figuratively.
Right.
So, I wanna read this other excerpt. It's
Right.
from 949-12, and, this actually talks about the music itself, healing not just mentally, spiritually, but physically. So it says, "There may be the vibrations by chords and characters of music in which there may be assistance brought not only to the mentally deficient, mentally twisted, the mentally unbalanced, but to even those who have characters of natures of fevers, in which there are humors within the body itself." And it goes on and says, "As there is the music of the spheres, there is indeed the music of the growing things in nature. There is then the music of nature itself. There is the music of the growth of the rose, of every plant that bears color, of every one that opens its blossom for the edification, for the sanctification, even of the environs thereabout." So we have that within us, and it affects every part of us. And that line about even if you have a fever, it can
Mhm.
shift that, and
Mhm.
that, also ties in with that vibrational nature. So, a fever and an illness is a certain vibration. So, if you attune it with the music of the spheres, or you literally bring in, soothing, healing music, then it can shift that vibration of the dis-ease into more of health and harmony and flow and a more pure expression of the music of the spheres. And that to me is so huge because we can take that concept and expand on it in every direction of health and healing.
Mhm. Absolutely. And in my mind, I'm immediately going to, oh, how can I integrate this into my family life? Like, how can I support my children and support our family's health and well-being with this idea of sound healing, of music, of that attunement process that happens. So maybe we can shift to talk a little bit about ways to integrate this in now. And I can just say that, since beginning to do this research several weeks ago, I was, it resonates with me. We're just using all sorts of vibratory vibratory puns today. It resonates with me that that everything is moving at a vibratory level, that we're looking to bring things into balance, and that music is one of these pathways or channels that we have to really support ourselves in feeling well physically, mentally, and spiritually. Spiritually being moving us toward that joy, that place of co-creative expression that is, love or God or something like that, and that creates in us a sturdiness, a well-being, and of no matter what's happening, of kind of knowing that we know how to care for ourselves and find our sense of what it is that's going on and what is ours to do and why we're here, which I feel like for children and ourselves is so helpful. But so for me, immediately I'm like, oh, I want to be playing music in our home a little bit more, or when we're in the car, that feels good to me and that feels good to our family to kind of support that well-being. I want to allow myself. I was remembering that when I was a little girl, I like hummed and
Mhm.
sang songs a lot more, that was kind of like a natural way that I moved through and that through my days, and that I want to kind of bring that in. So have noticed myself like driving the carpool. I'll just hum a little bit more or sing a little bit of a song. I don't know if all the children can hear me or not, but just kind of bringing that in to what's happening, or really remembering to bring in song as I'm putting my children to sleep and singing songs with them or to them, depending on their mood, that kind of helps us settle and attune and all and all of that. Those are the small ways that I've
Uh-huh.
started doing it all
Yeah,
already.
absolutely. Anytime I have, like, errands or, when you have to do some things at the home, like, that
Yeah,
you just have to do routinely, like laundry and dishes, it's the
right.
like the song says, "Whistle while you work." So any
Yeah.
humming and singing, that will actually increase nitric oxide, which helps to balance your blood pressure, it helps to ease tension,
Mhm.
and it's such an easy, prescription to give to people that, for any issues, really, is to
Totally.
incorporate that and to be able to access this healing, property of music. But
Mhm.
you can use it for, purposely for, say, when you have to make a decision, and this is so interesting because it says that in the Cayce readings. In reading 1042-2, it says, "If there arises in the experience a decision to be made, whether upon the material things, a change of residence, a change of environments, or any nature or type, do so under the influence of music." So
Mm.
if you have any decisions you need to make, I mean, how cool is that, that you can have the music of the spheres help you?
Mhm.
So if you pick
Mhm.
something inspiring to listen to that's uplifting, then that will help connect you with the oneness, with the creative forces so that you can navigate your decision-making process more with more ease.
Totally. And it may be interesting to just, sidebar a tiny bit into because you were saying picking music that's uplifting and balancing and that feels good and that's a conscious choice that we want to be making with our children and our families too, right? Because I heard some in the readings and certainly in other sound healing places that, there can be sounds that don't
Mhm,
bring us more into resonance but more dissonance, and that can be, I think it's putting some responsibility on the individual to trust themselves to be able to recognize this is helpful for me. This is helpful for our home. This is uplifting, to not be too tight with that and also not too loose with that, and how to find that balance of what sound really helps me feel good right now and how can
mhm.
I notice that for myself and also support my children in noticing that for themselves. Yeah.
Mhm. Yeah, that Casey does touch on that in the readings, by saying that, yeah, there's all different kinds of music, and a lot of music is meant to be for the expression of emotions, but some
Mhm.
of the emotions we have are going to be more difficult ones, and it gives it this nice safe outlet. So he says,
Mhm.
yeah, that has a purpose, and do that, but
Mhm.
don't just listen to music that might have, more emotions that are more sad or down, because that is helpful in a way, but to also balance that with music that is inspirational and brings joy.
Totally.
So, there are different kinds of music and they have their purposes, and it's being able to match it for the purpose that you would need it for, and to be mindful that it's not the destructive kind of music that makes you agitated or more
Mhm.
anxious,
Yeah.
gets you
Or
angry and riled up.
angry. Exactly. I was gonna say that there's, like, a lot of angry music, that is I love how the readings were saying that the importance of
Mhm.
expressing that emotion and getting it out, and music being powerful and safe way to do that, and also recognizing that that's not all, that you don't want to only be doing that for yourself. And one helpful way of maybe orienting yourself in that or finding a path forward is there's so many examples in the readings where it's pointing us toward nature related to music. So even that opening excerpt that we used of, like, think of the sound of the waves on the shore, think of the sounds of the insects at night as the darkness is coming, of the song of the morning as the sun is breaking, take a moment to kind of just call forth those memories of times where you've been moved in nature, or in general moved in a positive way toward feeling better, toward feeling good,
Mhm.
and let that feeling kind of wash over you a bit. And then from that place, allow yourself to move and be directed into, what do I want to listen to right now? Or what sound do I want to make right now? What
Mhm.
sort of humming do I want to do? And also acknowledging that the readings and so many, maybe every ancient spiritual lineage, it talks about this sound of the universe. This in the readings, it's
Mhm.
A.R.E. Often in Hinduism, it's Om, and the yogic traditions. And that's a really that's a really familiar sound to us at a vibratory level because it's what the universe is making all the time, and we are part of the universe. So that A.R.E. Om sound, I know we will often Om as our blessing or as part of our blessing before we have dinners together. And I think that's a great way to do it. Everyone in the family can kind of find their, what I'm not a I'm not a musician, so I don't know what, like, what chord they wanna be in. That's what I'm looking for, and kind of find that, and then we bring it all together sort of naturally in that way. So that's one way in time to kind of check in that way of how you're feeling, what naturally arises without it being too forced, which is important in our house. I get a hard shutdown if I'm trying to talk too much or force too hard into, "How are you feeling? What's going on?" It's just, have a small window for that. So that's an easy way that we work with sound in our family as well.
I love that, Corinne. Thank you so
Yeah.
much for this conversation because I loved being able to dive into these subjects with you.
Totally. I look forward to our recording days so much. It's just so wonderful to be able to luxuriate in a space of exploration and discovery and real application of how to make these things real in our lives. And I so appreciate your perspective, Arlene, and the dialogue that we get to have. So I hope that you all are feeling some version of that as well, that this is just an opportunity to open your minds and hearts to these topics from the readings that are so big and also can be so relevant to how we navigate our lives. So thank you so much for sharing this time with us. We always love to hear from you at creatingcalm@edgarcayce.org. We love to hear what's on your mind and heart as well.
Thanks everyone for being here with us.